Ha Betuwishte. I'm Chief Jennifer Bone from Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation. We join others in sending prayers to Kamloops Desequipmuk First Nation and the families and communities affected by the results of the preliminary investigation of the child graves on the site of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. Our community empathizes and understands the collective pain and sorrow that the forced Indian residential schools afflicted upon our nations. The news has triggered raw emotions of sadness and grief in all of us. The discovery is not new for us. For many years, we have been actively working to identify the Brandon Residential School cemeteries and the unmarked graves. The school located near our community operated from 1895 to 1972 and was finally demolished in 2000. Children from various First Nations were forcibly brought here. Many perished and for reasons unknown were not returned home for a proper burial. Through our research into the history of the Brandon Residential School, we have identified 2 cemeteries. One is located at the Turtle Crossing Campground and the other is land owned by the Brandon Research Center. We have also identified a possible third burial ground on a portion of the school property that we currently own. With funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council Partnership Development Grant, we are collaborating with university partners to conduct this investigation. While employing archaeological survey techniques, geophysical technologies, survivor accounts, and archival documents, our investigation has identified 104 potential graves in all 3 cemeteries, and that only 78 are accountable through cemetery and burial records. Negotiations to find and protect the Brandon Indian Residential School cemeteries has been complicated. The project is ongoing thanks to individual stakeholders coming together to find a solution on our own. Similar to the next steps identified by Chief Roseanne Casimir, work is moving forward to identify affected communities with children that may be buried in these cemeteries. We want to create safe spaces for families and communities to decide on appropriate ways to honor our children and to support them in meaningful ways. Speaking from experience, we would like to highlight the need for broader action from the Government of Canada, including to implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action, specifically actions pertaining to missing children and burial information, to fund long-term community health and trauma support, to fund long-term community-based research across Canada, to develop a centralized and public cemetery database and registry, and to enact legislation to protect all residential school cemeteries. We must honor the memory of the children who never made it home by holding the Government of Canada, churches, and all responsible parties accountable for their inhumane actions. There is more work to be done to bring truth to the atrocities afflicted on the children who are our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, and those children who never became parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. The families and communities whose children were lost while attending these schools have questions that deserve answers. The children buried at these sites must have their identities restored and their stories told. They will never be forgotten. Every child matters.